The AI arms race is on, and it seems nothing can slow it down.
Google says it's launching its own artificial intelligence-powered chatbot to rival ChatGPT.
Too much AI, too fast. It feels like every week some new AI product is coming onto the scene and doing things never remotely thought possible.
We're in a really unprecedented period in the history of artificial intelligence. It's really important to note that it's unpredictable how capable these models are as we scale them up.
And that's led to a fierce debate about the safety of this technology.
We need a wake-up call here. We have a perfect storm of corporate irresponsibility, widespread adoption of these new tools, a lack of regulation, and a huge number of unknowns.
Some researchers are concerned that as these models get bigger and better, they might one day pose catastrophic risks to society.
So how could AI go wrong? And what can we do to avoid disaster?
So there's several risks posed by these large language models. One class of risks is not all that different from the risks posed by previous technologies like the internet, social media. For example, there's a risk of misinformation because you could ask the model to say something that's not true, but in a very sophisticated way and post it all over social media. There's a risk of bias, so they might spew harmful content about people of certain classes. Some researchers are concerned that as these models get bigger and better, they might one day pose catastrophic risks to society. For example, you might ask a model to produce something on a factory setting that it requires a lot of energy for. And in service of that goal of helping your factory production, it might not realize that it's bad to hack into energy systems that are connected to the internet. And because it's super smart, it can get around our security defenses, hacks into all these energy systems, and that could cause, serious problems. Perhaps a bigger source of concern might be the fact that bad actors just misuse these models. For example, terrorist organizations might use large language models to, hack into government websites or produce biochemicals by using the models to kind of discover or design new drugs. You might think most of the catastrophic risks we've discussed are a bit unrealistic, and for the most part that's probably true. But one way we could get into a very strange world is if the next generation of big models learned how to self-improve. One way this could happen is if we told a really advanced machine learning model to develop an even better, more efficient machine learning model. If that were to occur, you might get into some kind of loop where models continue to get more efficient and better, and then that could lead to even more unpredictable consequences. There are several techniques that labs use to make their models safer. The most notable is called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. The way this works is labelers are asked to prompt models with various questions, and if the output is unsafe, they tell the model, and the model is then updated so that it won't do something bad like that in the future. Another technique is called red teaming, throwing the model into a bunch of tests and then seeing if you can find weaknesses in it. These types of techniques have worked reasonably well so far, but in the future, it's not guaranteed these techniques will always work. Some researchers worry that models may eventually recognize that they're being red teamed, and they of course want to produce output that satisfies their prompts, so they will do so, but then once they're in a different environment, they could behave unpredictably. So there is a role for society to play here. One proposal is to have some kind of standards body that sets, kind of tests that the various labs need to pass before they receive some kind of certification that, hey, this lab is safe. Another priority for governments is to invest a lot more money into research on how to understand these models under the hood and make them even safer. You can imagine a body like a CERN that lives currently in Geneva, Switzerland for physics research, something like that, being created for AI safety research so we can try to understand them better. For all these risks, artificial intelligence also comes with tremendous promise. Any task that requires a lot of intelligence could potentially be helped by these types of models. For example, developing new drugs, personalized education, or even coming up with new types of climate change technology. So the possibilities here truly are endless.
This week, a tech pioneer named Geoffrey Hinton announced he had left his job at Google so he could speak freely about the dangers of artificial intelligence, the technology he helped to create. 2 days later, the chair of the Federal Trade Commission wrote an op-ed in the New York Times laying out her own concerns and calling for strict regulation. Whether you realize it or not, artificial intelligence already runs many aspects of our lives. So why are experts, and indeed the godfather of AI himself, suddenly scrambling to warn us about it? NBC News technology correspondent Jake Ward has our Sunday focus.
You've seen the movies. Humans build robots.
What am I?
Robots rebel.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
It all goes bad.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
And already, in these early days of AI chatbots, we've seen some pretty weird behavior from tech like ChatGPT.
AI doesn't have to be sentient to be scary.
The first release of Microsoft's AI-powered chatbot tried to convince a New York Times reporter to leave his wife.
I said, I'm married. And it said, well, you're married, but you're not happy. And you're not happy because you're not with me.
And now, an early AI pioneer has retired from Google and is speaking out about it.
I wanted to be able to talk about what I thought were some looming problems.
It's what comes after ChatGPT that has Geoffrey Hinton worried.
ChatGPT knows much more than any one person. It doesn't yet know it very deeply. It's not yet very good at reasoning, but that'll change. There's a small chance that it could get smarter than us in the next 5 years or so. There's a much larger chance it can get smarter than us in the next 20 years.
Already, companies like IBM are announcing plans to slow hiring for positions that AI could replace. And intelligence officials have been sounding the alarm about AI dangers, like supercharging misinformation campaigns.
Democracies with open information environments are the most vulnerable to them.
Some argue the worry is overblown.
Of course, powerful technologies have risks. The alarmism, the part that I'm much more skeptical of, is AI taking over the world, doomsday. And frankly, there's no data to support that.
But even as tech leaders like Google's former CEO praise the possibilities,
getting better materials, solving climate change, managing our energy systems better.
He says companies need to get better about seeing the threats early.
If left to our own devices, our industry is going to maximize revenue because they're good business people, right? And I'm proud to be one of those people. But the fact of the matter is there should be some limits on what can be done. 15 years ago, I was a huge proponent of social media in all forms. And I did not see that it could be misused. I just didn't see it.
And while Hinton says there are enormous benefits to the technology he spent a career building, the risks are too large to ignore.
That's why I'm speaking out publicly. I want to get a lot more people thinking about how we're going to keep control of this stuff.
And Jake joins me now live. Jake, good morning. One of the arguments we hear from tech companies is that regulation of artificial intelligence effectively is pointless because countries like Russia and China will not abide by any new rules. So what do the experts say about reining in AI?
Well, the experts I've been speaking to, Willie, point out that Russia, to start with, has a national initiative on AI. They launched that in 2021, but really are nowhere, and especially with sanctions and the war in Ukraine, do not seem to have much traction there. China, meanwhile, is the thing that everyone points to. They'll somehow sprint ahead of us because they won't have the same regulations we will. Well, the truth is, Willie, as of last month, China debuted a bunch of regulations, including one that holds companies legally liable for more or less anything that people go on to do with the AI they create. So this idea that somehow the rest of the world is going to sprint ahead does not seem to be true. It's more the case that, especially when it comes to China, that they're in fact ahead of us on regulation here in the United States. The whole thing is more or less unregulated, Willie.
In a deep sense, AI is the technology that the world, that society, people have always wanted. Sci-fi's been talking about this for a very long time. I think we can do a lot to really maximize the good and manage and mitigate the bad. But the scary part is just sort of putting this lever into the world will for sure have unpredictable consequences. We think it's very important to our mission to deploy things like ChatGPT so that people gain some experience and feeling of the capabilities and limitations of these systems. But as these models get to know you better and are capable of more, you can really imagine a world where you have a fairly simple and short conversation with the model, and a huge amount of things get done on your behalf. Pretty soon, I think we'll just expect all the products and services we use to have some intelligence baked in, and it'll just kind of be expected like a mobile app is today. I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong, and we want to be vocal about that. We want to work with the government. It is our responsibility to educate policymakers and the public at large about what we think is happening, what we think may happen, likely to happen in the future, and to put technology out into the world so people can see it.
Exploitation of personal data, the proliferation of disinformation, and the deepening of societal inequalities. We have seen how algorithmic biases can perpetuate discrimination and prejudice, and how the lack of transparency can undermine public trust. That voice was not mine. The words were not mine. And the audio was an AI voice cloning software trained on my floor speeches. The remarks were written by ChatGPT. When it was asked how I would open this hearing.
We've so grown up in a world where we sort of trust someone's voice we hear over the phone. This particular example, I think, is going to be a problem, and we need society to adjust to it fast. So I think we just all need to start telling people, this is coming. You can't trust a voice you hear over the phone anymore. And society is capable of adapting to this. People are much smarter and savvier than I think a lot of the so-called experts think. These systems are already quite powerful and will get tremendously powerful. And we have come together as a global community before for very powerful technologies that pose substantial risk that one has to overcome to get to the tremendous upside. I think AI will contribute a lot to increasing the total amount of wealth in the world. However, it won't be sufficient on its own, and I still think we need much more public policy around how we're going to divvy up access to these systems, how we're going to divvy up governance of these systems. That will be a matter for policy, not the technology alone. The effects that AI have are going to be very different in the world than the effects that social media had. And so I think it is difficult and dangerous to say, oh, it's going to play out like this, and we're going to think of this like social media, or we're going to think of this like nuclear weapons, or we're going to think of this like synthetic biology, or we're going to think of this like the iPhone. This is just a new thing, and I think analogies from the past are going to particularly badly fail us this time around.
It's really important that in the present moment, we preserve space for a public conversation around the deployment of AI systems that ensures that they're working in the public interest, in workers' interest, and as well as in employers' interest.
We turn now tonight to the ABC News exclusive one-on-one with Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates on artificial intelligence, the new technology that's already here. It can solve complex problems, write essays, come up with recipes with a simple image of what's inside your refrigerator. It can even help doctors. Tonight, hear Bill Gates on why Americans should embrace it, but with caution. And when asked, is the U.S. government, are regulators ready? Not yet. Rebecca Jarvis with the interview tonight.
Tonight, the ABC News exclusive, billionaire, philanthropist, and Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates on his optimism and his warning for Americans on the meteoric rise of artificial intelligence.
Are you scared?
We're all scared that a bad guy could grab it. Let's say the bad guys get ahead of the good guys. Then something like cyber attacks, could be driven by an AI.
The White House, the administration, regulators here in the U.S., do you think they're up to speed?
Not yet.
They're not ready?
Not yet. I mean,
why are they not ready?
You're never going to have every politician understanding it, but how do you build up a capacity to review things? They won't be the experts, but they have to be part of that discussion.
Why not put a pause to it while we just figure out some of these very basic things?
If you just pause the good guys and you don't pause everyone else, you're probably hurting yourself. You definitely want the good guys to have strong AI.
Can you guarantee that?
If you stop the good guys, you can guarantee it won't happen.
And we also had a rare interview with Google's CEO, Sundar Pichai. What do you compare AI to in the course of human civilization?
You know, I've always thought of AI as the most profound technology humanity is working on, more profound than fire or electricity or anything that we have done in the past.
Why so?
It gets at the essence of what intelligence is, what humanity is. You know, we are developing technology which for sure one day will be far more capable than anything we have ever seen before.
For me, the most amazing thing that I saw at Google was their Bard chatbot.
We played with a famous 6-word short story, often attributed to Hemingway.
For sale, baby shoes, never worn.
Wow. The only prompt we gave was finish this story. In 5 seconds, holy cow! The shoes were a gift from my wife, but we never had a baby. I had a little bit of an emotional reaction when I was working with Bard because I had the sense that I was meeting an intelligence that I had never conceived of and an intelligence that I was sure that I would never understand.
I can totally understand what you're talking about, and I don't want to read too much into it today, where the state-of-the-art technology is. We are humans interacting with something which in some ways is mirroring humanity back in certain ways.
What are the downsides?
I mean, the downsides, at some point, does humanity lose control of the technology it's developing?
Control when it comes to disinformation and generating fake images. We saw the potential with Google's AI that creates pictures out of words. This is text in, pictures out.
Exactly.
Eli Collins is a vice president at Google.
You can generate a picture of pretty much most things you imagine. I'm happy to put it in a prompt if you've got something.
Let's try pink taxi cabs on Fifth Avenue.
All right, pink taxi cabs.
Instantly, we saw a shade unknown on New York cabs. Next, Collins gave us a first look at an AI system Google has not released yet, experimental text-to-video, which instantly answered our prompt, golden retriever with wings.
Oh, look at that.
As with Bard, this has safety filters. For example, it doesn't create images of people.
Every Google executive we talked to said that there is a pressing need for government to regulate this new frontier of artificial intelligence because it has the power to change just about all of our lives.
To be clear, this is going to be a cat and mouse game, right? People are going to use AI to be more sophisticated, no different from how we have tackled spam in Gmail. And we are constantly developing better algorithms to detect that they are spam. We would need to do the same with deepfakes, audio and video. But over time, look, there has to be regulation. You're going to need laws against, there have to be consequences for creating deepfake videos which cause harm to society.
I don't usually hear CEOs of major corporations ask for government regulation.
Anybody who has worked with AI for a while, you realize this is something so different and so deep that we would need societal regulations to think about how to adapt.
The man behind ChatGPT, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, is now pleading with Congress to regulate AI before it's too late.
My worst fears are that we, the field, the technology, the industry, cause significant harm to the world. If this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
AI's peril is far more than stealing a singer's voice and composing a new song or drafting love letters and college essays. Researchers warn it could create counterfeit humans, steal identities, spread fake news and medical advice, undermine elections, democracies, even start wars. And there is wide agreement that humans could soon start losing their jobs to AI.
How do we find meaning in life if the AI could do your job better than you can?
Billionaire Elon Musk, who helped fund OpenAI, is among hundreds of tech leaders calling for the industry to hit pause. Last night, he talked exclusively to CNBC's David Faber.
There's a strong probability that it will make life much better, and there's some chance that it goes wrong and destroys humanity. Hopefully that chance is small, but it's not zero.
For years, Hollywood has envisioned a dark future controlled by computers.
What am I?
While iRobot may be extreme, the man known as the godfather of AI, Dr. Geoffrey Hinton, recently left his job at Google to issue a stark warning.
I think it's possible that people are just passing phase in the evolution of intelligence.
People are a passing phase. In other words, computers will take over.
Yes, that's possible.
An existential threat to all of us. Listen to where that warning is coming from. These are the guys who invented this technology. And there's growing bipartisan agreement in Congress that AI needs to be regulated. But the U.S. is far behind Europe, where new AI guardrail laws are moving towards passage. Riskier apps would be facing tougher oversight in Europe. EU laws would move to protect children, ban scoring people based on their behavior, and remote facial recognition, using that in stores, for example. So this is really a brave new world, you guys.
The stakes are higher. I absolutely hear you, and so does everyone else. But if we're talking about how to help, again, I ask the question, is regulation possible? Or do you think the government should actually say, everyone, cease and desist right now until we figure out the implications here?
I absolutely think it should be banned. I think we should absolutely say that frontier AI development, so the development of newer, more capable, more general system, there should be a full moratorium. This is the only logical thing. If we see, we're in a world where the CEOs of the company's billions of technologies who have the most to gain by downplaying the risk of these technologies themselves are on the record stating that there is a real chance of potential human extinction, or at the very least, full job automation from these systems. This is like as if all top CEOs from all top banks were warning about massive economic blow-up risks. If that happened, we would ban first. And then once we figured things out, we would slowly open up in a careful, deliberate way once we are sure that we understand the risks.